I mean, this thing goes.
Jay, isn't it a wonderful thing to drive a landmark?
It is. You know, it's interesting. If you look at great sports cars of the new millennium, there are a bunch introduced around 2004, 5, 6.
The Enzo?
Ford GT, SLR, and the Porsche Carrera GT. I got 3 of them. I bought the Porsche Carrera, I bought the SLR, and I bought the Ford GT. And I still have all 3. And all 3 have gone up in value and proved to be very worthwhile investments. Maintenance hasn't been crazy, but it's okay. It's not bad. I drive them sensibly. I use them all on a regular basis.
That's a key.
Yeah, and they've all been very reliable. This was pre-hybrid days. You know, it's so funny that last Porsche Carrera GT is considered the last analog Porsche with a proper gearbox. It was so advanced at the time, and yet within half a decade, it was this old-fashioned kind of thing that was fun to drive because it was old-fashioned.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
Then around 2015, you had all sorts of fascinating hybrid cars. The McLaren P1, the car we're driving right now, the 918 Porsche, of which they built 918, which I thought was very clever. And you've got then the Koenigsegg, and but all involving new hybrid technology. And it's funny that this, so advanced in 2015, it's still advanced, but it seems like we're moving quickly past it.
We are, and we aren't. One of the things that this car was when it was introduced was incredibly complex and advanced. Sort of a 959 of the new era. And one of the things that's so interesting about this is the fact that it was truly the test bed for the technology which we see in the serial production Panameras, Cayennes, and Macans today.
Right.
So, and those cars, it's very interesting that the Panamera hybrid is actually more complex than the 918.
Wow.
Again, talking about the millions of lines of code required to run the car, and it's a fascinating thing. But I love these cars, the LaFerrari, the P1, because they also represented major performance manufacturers embracing hybrid technology.
Right.
Before it was sort of an outlier. It was a Toyota Prius kind of a thing, and people thought, oh well, hybrid and high performance would never live in the same room together.
Well, it's interesting because I tried them all and I chose the P1. I'm still glad I did because although also extremely complex, less complex than this. Rear-wheel drive only. The thing I found when I tested this, when it was introduced, even the technicians would go, no, wait a minute, hang on. I mean, even they sort of were a little... Plus, I didn't really care for four-wheel drive at the time. I don't like the fact that I sit bolt upright in the car, looking out this little rear view mirror. The great advantage of it is, like the P1 only gives you about 6, maybe 7 miles of hybrid, whereas this gives you like 19 or something. I mean, it's actually
12, 19.
Like we're talking now because we're in hybrid mode.
Exactly.
And we're not hearing the engine. Now this, I believe, has a combined using the, was it 4.6 liter?
4.6 liter V8.
V8.
And the 2 electric motors. The V8 puts out about 599 horsepower.
Right.
2 electric motors put out about 280 or so horsepower.
For what, 887? The P1 had 903. I just chose the P1 because, as I said, 2-wheel drive. I had just bought the other McLaren a few years earlier, the romantically titled MP412C, which is not the least romantic name of any. It's not the Panther or the Mustang. It's the MP412C.
I think they were trying to do this whole Formula One related thing.
Right.
Which is, neither here nor there. But it's very interesting too, though. Again, the use of complexity of specification. Yes, this is technically an all-wheel drive car, but most of the time it's a rear-wheel drive car.
Right.
So you really only use the electric motor on the front axle when you're really in high performance mode.
Right, right.
That's the thing is so interesting. Again, today with the hybrid cars that are out, like one of my favorites, the new Ferrari 296 GTB and GTS. I love starting off in electric mode, as we just did. We are in total silence, and then you put your foot in, and the internal combustion engine comes in and just gives you that incredible song and the little goose in your back.
Right, right, right.
This is, I think, one of my favorite Porsche cars.
Well, it just seems overly complex to me for, it's so funny, the day is going to come when people take something out of the pocket and go, here, the battery of my phone, I now use it to run my Porsche Carrera. I mean, it's that small. You know what I mean? This will look like some huge, cumbersome thing that you fit in there, and oh my God, how big is that battery in there?
It is very much an item of its time, that's for sure. Again, just going back to the 959, there are all-wheel drive cars, performance and family sedans that do what the 959 did much more simply.
Right.
But the fact that they did it at the time as a breakthrough is, I think, what makes it so special. You look back at this and think about your Owen Magnetic and how incredibly clever that vehicle was. And, for the time it was, oh my God, what's going on here with these motors at each wheel and all of this stuff. And in fact, some of the proposed specifications for the 918 actually had a very similar spec, that they were going to have 4 individual electric motors, one at each wheel. But they thought, okay, this is a bit much. They don't need to go that far.
I mean, this is wonderful to drive, but I don't know if it's more fun than a 72 2.7 lightweight, 911. You know what I mean?
It's a different thing, Jay.
It is a different thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the fact that I'm in electric mode now, so I'm not wasting fuel. Mm-hmm. When you drive a car like this, you drive it for pleasure. Right. So you say to yourself, why would I waste fuel on the part that's not pleasure? Like we were just in bumper to bumper traffic.
Right.
So I love the fact that for 19 miles I can put in an electric, save the gas for when I want to have fun.
Want to use it.
Yeah, when I want to use it. If I'm going to exploit the Earth's meager resources, I at least want to do it when it's fun,
This, I think, gives, it allows us to have our cake and eat it too. It's delicious cake. The other thing which I really enjoy about this car is, you and I have spoken a lot about the seats in a high performance car. These are very supportive racing type seats, but they're very comfortable.
They are comfortable. The difference between having the roof on and off in a car like this is the difference between having the roof on and off. I mean, it is. I like my McLaren because it's got a greenhouse here, so you get a little bit more light in and stuff. I love the fact that, like my Carrera GT, I put the roof on only one time. We were riding with my wife, and my hair. Okay, sorry. Okay, we stopped to put the roof on. It seems so claustrophobic to me.
Yeah, especially this happens to be one of the Weissach edition cars, which has a number of additional performance and weight-saving features, like the carbon fiber windshield surround, and there's additional carbon fiber.
But you're saving what, 43 kilograms?
Well, every kilo counts.
I know, but if you skipped a couple of
counts.
lunches, you could have the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yes, but why not have the windshield surround and a burger instead?
Right.
But so it's also it's a little darker in here, I think, than it might be in some other 918s. But yeah, I think that the character of the car completely changes with the roof panels off. That's for sure. One of the other things I really like about this car is the view through the windshield. Seeing those fenders is just not only romantic, but it also, I think, for me, helps drive the car better. You know where the car is.
The thing I don't like is looking out the rearview mirror through this tiny V. I realize how much I love my Tesla big rear screen, because I can see exactly what's behind me and who's on my left fender or my right fender.
Well, it's an interesting thing that you should mention that as well. I don't know if we spoke about this, but I recently had a drive in the Maserati MC20. Again, like many mid-engine cars, visibility from the interior mirror is not terrific.
Right.
And so it actually has a rear view camera, which displays in the mirror.
Right.
And so I said to the Maserati technician I was riding with, I said, what happens if I turn that off and look in the mirror? He said, oh, here's a switch, you can do that. And I saw basically nothing.
Right.
So yeah, the fender mirrors become ever more important when you're driving a car like this. And again, to your point about the technology that is so advanced that we become used to it in the most common road cars, the lane departure assist, the blind spot detector.
Right.
You drive a car and all of a sudden this is an amazing car, but it doesn't have that.
Right. Yeah, I was very impressed with the MC20. I thought it was very nice.
Yes. Sort of seemed like sort of a modern Bora.
Yeah, or maybe an Italian Corvette.
Mm-hmm.
Which
is more or less saying the same thing, because the Bora is like
right, which is not an insult. I mean,
not at all.
Because
No.
I thought it was very nice. I thought the interior was a bit plain Jane, not Italian enough. I expected a bit more flair on the interior. And the V6 is okay, but it's a nice looking car.
Yeah.
And egress and all that kind of stuff is very good. Doors open wide. You're not scrunching your feet up to get in it. I think it'll be a successful car for them.
That's another feature of this car as well, is the fact that for a car of this size, and it's not a small car, the passenger compartment is very comfortable as well. There's very good leg room.
Yeah.
And reasonable shoulder and hip room.
That's true. Normally, I have to put the seat further back than it's supposed to go. Whereas this I actually moved it forward a little bit. So there's plenty of leg room. Well, being a Porsche, it's wonderful to drive. I'm still glad I chose my P1 over it, because I just like it better. It seems a bit, not quite so much electronics as this. But this is very good.
This is a great example of engineers adapting technology to brand characteristics, and I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Well, I think the fascinating day will be 50 years down the road. I had I've got a 57 Buick Roadmaster at the garage, and I hadn't had it out in a year, about easy. And I get in, I pour a little gas in the carburetor, turn the key, and it started. It was fine. I mean, it was fine. The idea of finding one of these in a barn.
No, it's a brick.
Yeah,
it is a brick.
I mean, I always say, mechanical things break, electrical things degrade, and you just never know. You can't look at a relay and go, it looks fine.
Yeah, exactly. It looks fine. It doesn't work, but it looks fine. This is one of the things that you mentioned a little earlier, about the fact that you drive your cars. It is so key, and especially with a car like this. The people that worship at the shrine of the undriven car, this is not the car for them.
No,
you do not want a 0 mileage 918 that has been hopefully plugged in the time it's been parked, because the car needs to run. It needs to cycle through all of its software. It has to be worked. And especially when people park the car and don't even have them plugged in, you're just killing it.
I have the modern Ford GT, the later one as well. And a couple weeks ago, let me take it out for a ride. As soon as I saw a check engine light on, oh jeez, so I said, all right, I drove, but it's like the telltale heart, it seems like it was getting brighter and brighter, and because a check engine light means either your gas cap is loose, or you have a broken connecting
exactly. Catastrophic failure is imminent.
So I said, I ruined it, because I wanted to go on and push the car a little bit, but I didn't want to. All right, so I turned around, went back to the garage, got a code reader, okay, whatever it was. I just cleared it. It's fine. Oh, did I fix it? Did I do anything, or did I just turn off the light? To this day, I don't know. It hasn't come back on again, but I just turned off the light. Whereas on my 57 Buick, I fixed the trunk latch because it was sticking, a little WD for. Oh, okay. I could see.
Right.
I could see and understand the problem.
Exactly.
I mean, this thing goes. Yeah.
It is one of those things that is such an incredible truism that the more you use something, the more it likes it.
Yeah.
And the idea that you're going to have to be very, very well aware of where the car has been, who has maintained the car, what's happened with the car, when you get into the car like this as the second or even
and it
more like
switches
third owner.
It switches from hybrid to gas seamlessly. It's pretty amazing.
Also, I don't know what the rate is, but it also has a very efficient battery recharging when you're in gasoline power mode. So it's a pretty swell thing.
Yeah, I hear horror stories about people who sometimes park these in their garage for a month without plugging it in. The battery's dead, and it's some crazy amount of money to replace the battery. I think replacing the battery in a P1 is like $165,000, some crazy thing like that. Yeah.
And when you realize that an unnecessary expense like that can be avoided by simply enjoying the car.
Right.
It's not as if you're going to put 100,000 miles a year on it, but yeah. And that's a funny thing too. Having conversations about people and using cars. If you were to put 150 miles a year on a car like this, that's a lot of miles. It's a lot of driving, pleasure. But the car will be so much more dramatically improved by that than just by sitting.
Right. Well, I mean, these are really excellent. It's obviously Porsche quality. It just, I remember at the time, it just seemed overly complex. And in my mind, I was like, well, let's see, the McLaren's got 903. That's 887. That's only, horsepower sells cars. I like my McLaren. They were a new company. I was sort of in on the ground floor because I had bought one of the MP 412Cs. I love that. It was a variation of that engine. So I'm very happy with it, but I could be happy with one of these too.
I think that when we look back on this time and see what these represented, and of course, you and I have had many conversations about the direction of electrification of the global automotive fleet, and I am a firm believer, and I repeat this as often as I possibly can, that there will be a mixture of cars, and I think that hybrid technology is a really important part of that mixture, and especially again for a company like Porsche that's very invested in the development of synthetic fuels for internal combustion engines. And I like what they do in terms of their model mix, offering the same models as pure ICE, as hybrids, and as pure electrics.
That's an example.
I think it's brilliant.
I bought one of those ridiculous Demon 170s because it runs on pure ethanol.
Right.
It makes the biggest. So I like it. I have diesel, I have gas, I have electric, I have turbine, I every conceivable form of power that because whichever one wins, I've got it covered.
You're covered. There's absolutely nothing like that takeoff. The Tesla Plaid does have the party trick of that extreme acceleration, and this of course is no slouch. It's 0 to 60 in 2-point-something seconds.
Right.
But just that silent startup, and then you put your foot in, and the music starts. I just love it.
Yeah, that's something you couldn't do on the P1. You couldn't start in electric.
Ah, okay. I did not know that.
But I think there's probably updates that it's mostly for emissions and other reasons why.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. Again, the fact that Formula One, which I'm a big fan, no matter how bizarre the series gets, has committed to this hybrid formula, the V6 internal combustion engine with a combination of electric drive.
What's going to be interesting is the Tesla sports car.
Yes.
I did a panel with Franz and some guys, and they had one there, and I said, should I wait for this? Oh, well, yeah, they really think it's going to be It's small.
It's bigger though than the original one that was based on the Lotus Elise.
Oh
correct?
yeah. But it's got like a 2+2 thing in the back, like a Porsche.
Ah, okay.
A removable roof. But it's faster than the Plaid, so I can't imagine.
Where do they see that positioning in terms of the market? The people that would buy that would be in the market for what else? A 911 or a
one
Ferrari
of these.
or
yeah.
Okay.
What's that? FFP Ferrari? Is that what's it called? What's the one that?
The FXX.
No, the 90 SF.
Oh, the SF90.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Probably. At probably a third of the price.
Well, you know, it's a very interesting thing to see. Hopefully they can get it to the market. I mean, the fact that we've been waiting so long, hopefully they've done a lot of development work on it, because that is obviously a very competitive part of the market.
You know what I'm driving next week is the new Tesla Semi.
Really?
The truck.
That's going to be
And I've been in
interesting.
that. It's like a building. It's like the Empire State Building. Goes to 60 miles an hour. It's just this huge thing. It's pretty amazing.
The idea that Porsche has not come back with a hybrid drivetrain for any of their sports car models, I think is interesting. You know, they've kept it in the sort of in the family car
Right.
realm. No hybrid Cayman, no hybrid 911. Eventually, I think they're going to have to introduce a hybrid sports car. Do you agree?
Probably, yeah. I think they're holding out for as long as they can, and I don't blame them. I mean, the fact that you're buying a 911 instead of the Cayman means you're a slave to tradition. You know, Harley Davidson for years, it would new for next year, new hand grips. You know, it'll always be the small, nothing to rock the boat. I mean, the fact that they will not allow the Cayman to have equal or one more horsepower than a 911.
Well, it's finally gotten close with the GT4.
Right. It's gotten close, but they just won't go there, you know. So sometimes you become a slave to tradition, or.
Well, I think they feel that they're protecting the market position and identity, but you know, as hybrid cars like the Ferrari 296 and others like it, the new Lotus,
Right.
the McLaren, gosh, what's the name of that model? What is the McLaren? Artura, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, with cars like that in the marketplace, I think Porsche has to offer an alternative for their clientele for those cars.
Right.
And it might have been interesting to see also what would have happened had Porsche been able to conclude its deal with Red Bull, because obviously getting into Formula One as an engine supplier with that V6 hybrid formula would have obviously forced them to build a power plant like that.
Right.
So it is an interesting thing. One of the things which is also, I think, very pleasurable about this car is that it's got really a nice weight in the front, in the steering, you know? Makes it feel very secure.
It does, until you drive a 911 that has no weight in the front. You go, oh, this is really better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, electricity can mask so many ills.
Oh, yeah.
You know, weight in the front, power steering. Oh my God, suddenly something that was a barge to drive is suddenly a pleasure to drive because you can do it with one finger. I remember when that came out, Chrysler had all those power figures in the 50s, and they showed the most petite woman they could with the tiniest foot touching the power brake and this 2-ton behemoth stopping. And you go, oh my God, that's unbelievable. You know, it just seemed incredible. And it's the same thing here.
exactly.
I know what you're saying about it, because I drove this and I love it. Yeah, it does feel that way. But then I go back to my 71 911, which doesn't weigh anything else. I like that better. It's not doing it through trickery or electricity.
Yeah.
It's doing it just through sheer lightness of mass.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Technology is a wonderful thing when it's telling a story. So this is, I think, I'm very glad to see that we are in complete agreement about how marvelous a vehicle this Porsche 918 is, and the fact that if people want to know about future collectibles or looking into what will be interesting and desirable 20, 30, 40 years from now, a car like this certainly would be it.
This is it, but I contend that the Porsche Carrera GT will be more valuable because it is the last days of old technology are always better than the first days of new technology. And the last days of that shifter with that fabulous V10 engine, which is one of the greatest sounding engines of all time. It really is a joy to listen to. And, so it's interesting. It's interesting.
Well,
but this is a great car.
Everybody, come back here in 20 years and see who's right, me or Jay.
All right.
Thanks.
You won't have to come back.